This again is the setting for our story, and I'll tell you just a little bit more here as we go about the realities. Because in the middle of the Finchgau Valley, this is the reality. This is what happens when everything is transitioned to apples. And I'll give you a little taste of this. And by way of this story, this is the Gluter family. They're folks who've become really good friends of my family here over the last couple of years because they had an organic herb business. And what's fascinating is that Urban, who is the father, Urban decided that he wanted to change careers. He was working with mentally disabled adults. And part of what was happening in the process was they asked him if he would help them learn how to do certain kinds of farming. And so they started producing teas that they could grow, they could package, and then they could sell as part of the career development for these folks. And Urban just got really fascinated. And he realized, well, this is sort of an odd contrast because I have this orchard, which was conventionally managed, and I'm out there spraying, and here I am working by day, with all of these people and pushing all of the principles of organic. He said it just didn't feel like everything aligned very well. So he decided that maybe there was this business opportunity when he turned 40 in order to change things around and start an organic herb farm. So that's what he and his wife did. He did it with the help of his father and mother. When it was all said and done, which is right now, 4 generations started to contribute to putting together this organic herb farm. And it was awesome, and it was profitable, and it was working out. But then the apple orchards started to move in until it got to the point where they were entirely surrounded by apple orchards. And as a result of being entirely surrounded by apple orchards, they were dealing with pesticide drift, so that suddenly all of the crops that they were producing were tainted by this pesticide drift. And of course, they had to have things tested in order to be organic. And it got to be so bad that they decided, okay, well, maybe we can have these really tall hedgerows. So they had tall trees put in all around the farm. That didn't do it. Then they decided they would build what they call in German a water curtain. So they would shoot these kind of fans of water up all the way across, all the way around the perimeter. So 30 feet high on all sides whenever they started spraying. They'd turn on these water curtains so that they'd be spraying up and hopefully capturing the water or capturing the pesticides. And then those pesticides and the water would be taken elsewhere off site. That didn't do the trick. So at that point they said, all right, so we have a choice. We can either stay here and we can fight the system and try to find a way to actually live within it, or we can move. But if we surrender, then everybody else is going to surrender. And so they said, we're going to stick it out. So they invested, at that point, 250,000 euros. At that point in time, it was just over $300,000 to cover their entire farm in greenhouses. Everything except for a little piece of show garden, which was around the outside, which they can't use or sell anything from that because it's tainted with pesticides. They covered the entire thing with these high tunnels. And what that means is they are protected from pesticides, and they have to do the testing, and that's good, I suppose. But also, when it rains and the water comes down and it hits those high tunnels, that water has to be taken off-site because it's tainted with pesticides. That's how bad it is. When they're working inside, and I've taken student groups in at various times, when they're working inside, it can get up to over 120 degrees inside because of those. And so the last time I was there and talking to Urban and his son Manuel, they said our goal in 7 years is to be able to work in an environment that's not 120 degrees. We want to make sure that the policies around us change so that we get to the point where if there are going to be apple farms around us, they're going to be organic apple farms. And we can't keep doing this. So their business is very successful. They're really amazing folks, but they've also borne the brunt of a lot of enmity of people around them. And in part, perhaps, it's because they've done all these videos. They have the last time we talked, they had over 300 different videos of the pesticide spraying that's going on. This is taken from their house. You can start to get a sense of what's happening with the pesticides. This is something that is not unique to this area, and yet this area, because it's sort of a funnel, essentially, this valley, you have what people call in dialect the Finchgewind, the Finchgau wind, which sometimes blows for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And if you're a farmer and you're trying to spray pesticides, typically every 7 to 14 days, that doesn't necessarily jibe. You also see the thermal updraft that you get here by virtue of being in a climate like this. And you also start to get a sense that, part of what we've done in pesticide development is we've actually created these aerosols. The idea is that we wanted to penetrate the foliage of the trees and the vines as extensively as possible. And to do that, you try to get the droplets as small as possible. So you create these aerosols, you're trying to blast it into the trees, but at the same time, this is what happens. Those aerosols can be lifted. So now what they're finding is, even at the lakes that are above 2,000 meters, they're finding pesticide residues there. So, we think we're fixing one thing in the pesticide industry, and it's just this constant treadmill of actually creating more problems for ourselves in so many cases.